How's it going, guys? Welcome to another video. Today we're going to be looking at 3 ranked games that were recently played by Sypical in the 3v3 ladder. And these games were some of the games that helped him climb to rank 1, where he currently sits with only a couple of days left in the season. This isn't unusual for Sypical. He's very consistently high rated in both 3s and 2v2. You can see him there at 5th and 6th with his teammate Arsenal. They're a deadly duo in 2v2. But Sypical, professional player for Space Station Gaming, one of the best 3s players in the pro scene worldwide. And it's going to be interesting to see just how he plays in ranked. So let's get into it. The first of 3 games. So Sypical playing with Daniel and Squishy against Too Fast, Sean B and Zanil in this first game here. And I do expect to see Sypical playing more of a defensive role for his team here. You have to remember, when you are getting high in the ranks, consistency is everything. This isn't a best of 3, this isn't a best of 5, where you can go full on aggressive. Well, Sypical does go aggressive there, but he's got Squishy back up behind him, so he's not afraid to move in. But like I was saying, you want to be playing carefully when you're trying to go for that rank 1 push. You want to take your chances when you get them, but you never want to go all in as third man. It's something that we noticed from Khaled when we looked at some of his 3s games from earlier on in this season. And now let's see if Sypical will do the same. That's some great defense. Fake challenge from Sypical, and then another fake challenge as well. All in the face of danger with a bump coming his way. So he's managed to get a good little 1v2 defensive play there. And gave Daniel and Squishy time to come back. Now I wonder if Sypical could have passed the ball to Squishy at the back post there. He's tried to sneak it in just by shooting himself. And he's actually going to hang around in the back wall there, but you'll notice he didn't really play the ball. He did go for the faster recovery and a bump on the road of it, which, speaking of, seems to be a recurring strategy for this team. Squishy landing one as well. Pace is the name of the game here, especially when you're playing against a player named Too Fast, who will probably not be too fast for his opponents in this lobby. Sypical under pressure again, always looking to clear the ball to the side. Clearing down the middle is more likely to be intercepted. And then Squishy, oh, that's a huge mind game of him. Sypical wants to bump, but actually good defense coming out of the orange team there. Could have very easily been a goal for blue once again, and this could easily be a goal as well. Daniel's got physical play, Squishy's got the shot, but it's clear to the side. Orange team also doing their best at clearing to the side. Oh my goodness, pre-flip shot by Sypical. Clipped it on the landing, but it was well saved again. This is some good defense by both teams. Good goalkeeping at least. Maybe not the most organized defense at times because of how many bumps and demos are being constantly threatened. It's hard to stay organized. Sypical there missing. 100 boost steal, goes back for it. That'll probably be promising for all of you guys watching to see that even rank 1 players, even players pushing to get number 1 in the world, still miss the big boosts. I feel like no point in Rocket League's history has that not been a problem. Great pre-jump save there by Sypical. He's been alone in defense a couple of times, but he's always given himself a chance. He's not going in too early, not showing his hand too early, but he is reading the game brilliantly. That's the key for me, is solid defense. Impressive play by the orange team as well, though, and this goes to show that you can put 3 of the best players in North America, Squishy and Sypical, both established pros in the RLCSX scene, and Daniel, probably the hottest prospect who's not yet old enough to compete in RLCSX, and now you're going up against 3 players who are nowhere near as dominant as they are. They're putting up a great fight against him though. Squishy looks for the backboard, brings Sypical into the play, and that's a lovely shot by Sypical. Lifts it over the defender with the slight air roll to increase the arc on the ball. 2-0. It was the team play from Daniel and Squishy that set that one up, and Sypical's got both the goals so far. Clinical shooting. You'll notice that he's not had to aerial all that high for those shots. I do think that one of the biggest mistakes that players who are trying to make that push through the champ and even the grand champ ranks, they think it's all about getting up in the air as quickly as possible. Well, it's actually mostly about just hitting the ball as hard as possible from shooting positions. But those were both just shots from Sypical that have found the back of the net. Didn't have to go all that high for them. Squishy demos at the back post on the recovery. Demos and physical play have been crushing. Oh, Daniel also slams in a double touch and gives Blue a 3-0 lead. No forfeit coming out for Orange team though. This is ranked, so you never know just how chaotic and disorganized the opponents are going to be after kickoffs. Squishy's a little bit off his line there, and that's 1 goal for Orange. Squishy expected more of a 50-50 to the side, I believe. Pushed up right behind Sypical, and the ball's gone into an awkward position over his head. Now this is exactly what I was talking about. These kind of kickoffs can easily result in goals after goals. Not a lot of boost for Sypical, and this time he does clear down the middle, which doesn't get the ball all that far. It's right back in from Sean B. Too fast likewise. It's Orange piling on the pressure here. Counterplay from Daniel, and Squishy does well. That's a great save at the far post. Daniel hanging about after the fact to see if he can get any bumps going as he leaves the Orange goal area. Zanil has the reset. Fake Sypical, and that's going to be a 2nd goal for Orange. What a great goal that is by Zanil. I think he had that reset, pretty sure that he landed on the ball. Sypical thought so as well. But if he had gone for a shot after resetting on the ball, I think it would have hit Sypical, so the fake was definitely the best option there. And with not long left in the game, they've given themselves a fighting chance. Daniel just trying to keep the ball away from danger. Sypical pressuring, but not taking himself out of the game, and a little bit of revenge now. He's the one with the mind game. But can Orange keep this up? Can they get 1 more shot on net? They need to do the full pitch carry here, and it's not going to be easy with Daniel air dribbling the ball straight towards the ground. Zanil's, oh, he's just dropped it. That was a good try though. Had it curved up, they did have a counter-attack ready to go. So a pretty interesting game 1. Sypical's shooting, and then Daniel's solo effort with a double touch. Really doing work, but the passing and the demos from Blue, for me, were a lot better than the opponents. The synergy, very clearly an advantage, even though these guys are not teaming together on the regular, not professionally at least. Okay, the second of 3 games here. We have Sypical, and he's actually randomly queued. He's just queued up by himself, and he's got Forky and Fireburner in his team, so I'd say that's a pretty good deal. If you just queue solo, you can't be too mad about this outcome. That's going to be interesting to see Fireburner and Sypical playing together. I was curious to see if Sypical would have done this a lot of solo queuing, or would it all be team queue? Oh, well, not a good start as he plays for a very risky aerial play. Well, not so risky in the sense that he didn't have backup, but definitely a play that took him out of the game for an extended period of time, and Forky and Fireburner weren't able to hold it down in defense while Sypical was away. Now Forky, he's capable of pure magic in the air, but not this time, and Sypical's actually played a risky shot as well on the ground. Look at the recycle coming through from Fireburn. It doesn't take long to get the ball back into the middle. Sypical knew he could get up faster than his opponent for that one. He had the jump first. He already had full speed. That was a bit of a risky play by Fireburner in the corner. Sypical did have him covered, but has to use all of his boost just to get the ball to the halfway line. Fireburner keeping a close eye on Forky there. Didn't look like Forky was comfortable. You can already see that it's a bit more difficult for Sypical in this game to find that immediate synergy with the teammates. You do expect that when you have a solo queue game. Sypical looking for the mid boost grab. Fireburner and Forky both defending the back wall in the meantime. That's a tough read, but Sypical makes it look easy and does it with boost to spare so he can continue clearing the ball. You know, I said it in the last game that we casted of Sypical's ranked matches here. Now, I expect to see him sitting back a bit more and playing more of a defensive role. But that doesn't mean that he doesn't know how to get forward. That's a disgusting reset. Forky and Fireburner will be pretty happy to have Sypical on their team for this game. I mean, how on earth did Sypical get that on target? Absolutely wild reset shot. For the record, by the way, I've not watched these games, but this is the first time that I've seen them as well, so I've not had to cherry pick. I've not had to, you know, hunt through dozens of Sypical games to find this. He really is just this good all the time. Oh man, what a shot. Back in the game. Defensive wall reads have been key this match for Sypical, Forky and Fireburner. And I think it might be the most important wall to be able to read to get good in ranked 3s, is the back wall. Being able to read the ball as it bounces off your own back wall over your head is something that usually takes a bit longer to learn than reading those kind of bounces in offense. In offense, you've got a much more clear view of what's happening. If you remember earlier in this game, Sypical flew up almost blindly, just purely predicting where the ball would end up. He's out of the game for a long time here, though. This is risky play by Sypical. There's no denying it. He is relying fully on Forky and Fireburner to cover him there, as he lands on the back wall and doesn't have supersonic speed to recover. But now he will on his advance, and he puts in another goal. This one assisted by Big Fireburner. The game's completely turned around now. Sypical's offensive prowess, his timing has been key. And boy, has he been clinical as well. Oh dear, Forky's left the net open here. Wanted to go for boost. He expected Fireburner and Sypical to have just an element more control in that play. But they really didn't. It's just bounced straight out into the middle. And it's a wide open net. So the defense has been clearly more open at times throughout this game. Sypical didn't have the boost to really attack that ball. You can see that he thought about it, but if he did go for it, much like earlier on in the game, he would have been out of the game for a good long while. Still though, speed proving to be valuable as Sypical takes another clean hit on the ball. And notice that he's not gone for 100 boosts, he's just advancing, but it looks like he doesn't even need to. Forky's just scored it all by himself. Great shot there by Forky. But it is important to notice that Sypical, after respawning there after being demoed, he didn't go for 100 boosts. He immediately started getting back into the play. He knew that Forky was in attack all by himself, and he wanted to give him an option on the infield, give him a cross to aim for. Forky doesn't often need those. He's pretty good at finding those angles, but a really good thing to do. Don't worry too much about the boost if you can improve your position. Here he is going to go for a boost though, because there's no imminent centre ball coming through. Sypical always checking to see what's happening. He's always taking a look to see where the ball's going. You'll notice even here he's got ball cam on. He's not just running back to mid to rotate in a normal kind of automatic pathing. He's checking, okay, where's that ball going? What's going on? Do I need to turn early for it? See, Orange are getting a bit more aggressive now. That's a very early challenge. But with Fireburner sitting back, looks like it will be good for Sypical in this game. Brings the ball down for the dribble. Forky had a bit of pressure on the goalie, but a goal isn't needed at the moment. They just need to get this into the ground, and I think that's where it's headed. Unless, okay, it will bounce up this time off that side wall. Half a chance for the Orange team, but Sypical just wanted to get any kind of awkward touch onto it, wasting some time. And there's the grounded play from Fireburner to finish this one off. Now I know you guys are going to want me to go and play the Sypical reset again, so I shall. Before we go into the next game, I think we have to see this one. Pre-flip, and he just immediately shoots the ball with the reset. Crazy that he's able to get a bounce like this with the underside of the car. Wow. Like I said, I did not have to cherry pick these games in order to find a crazy play like this. These are just plays that happen all the time in Sypical's ranked games from his POV. But we've got one more to look at. These games are in chronological order. Let's get to the very most recent game of Sypical's ranked 3s grind in the database and see how he gets on. Okay, the third game we have Dapper, Sypical and Abstract. They've run into a full team. Pre-made team of Ajax, Sharp, and T-Bates. So this should be an interesting one. Very high-level players on both sides, as you would expect when you are queuing up as the rank 1 player in the world. So the keys to look out for, at least based on the 2 games we've seen so far, are Sypical's clinical offense. He does take his chances extremely, extremely well with vicious striking ability and creativity. You've also got to look out for his covering and defense. I think the second game he didn't do as good of a job of covering his teammates and sitting back and playing a safe game. Oh my goodness, already we're seeing some style from Sypical. That would have been an incredible redirect, but it's just bounced a bit too directly down into the ground. Abstract with a nice challenge there. He knew the ball was going to come center, so instead of rotating back post, he just hung about in the middle. He kind of went at the ball from the same angle as a defender, or rather as an attacker would, but just made sure to miss the goal with his touch, made sure not to hit the target. It's quite an easy thing to do for most players, myself included. Sharp in the back corner. Sypical, you'll notice he didn't want to just charge in there and give Sharp a 50-50. And some of you might be wondering, well, why is that? It looked like Sypical had a good bit of momentum there. Why didn't he just go flip into the ball? And the reason is, quite simply, because Sharp would have managed to control the 50-50, and Sypical would have just invested a whole pile of boost, maybe most of his boost there, just to take himself out of the game and not really advance the ball in any way. So you'll notice this a lot, especially at this level. Oh, Sypical. Double touch, just clipped the bottom of the bar, but it's going to be sent on target by Dapper. 1-0 for the blue team. Like I was saying though, you'll have to look out for pro players oftentimes not flipping into corner challenges, instead going for fake challenges, drive-by demos, boost steals, and sometimes just single jump or double jump challenges, but the flip is sometimes risky because your car can bounce onto the wall and your recovery can be ruined. You're also generating power for the opponent. That's a great save. Oh, and nearly a follow-up save. Dapper reading the double touch and giving Sypical and Abstract a chance to follow him up. The follow-up came more quickly from the orange team. Huge clear now from Ajax off that back wall. Interesting to note that we do actually have, a bunch of E-United players in here. E-United logos. We got both teams. Sypical quick into the middle. Doesn't jump any earlier than he had to. That's for me the key there. He was able to get the shot on target just as fast by driving forward and then at the last second pulling off a fast aerial instead of pulling a fast aerial off and flying in a straight line forwards. Another key thing to point out. These are, for me, the differences between players at the absolute highest level and those who are looking to get up there. Just very efficient movement. They don't commit any earlier than they have to. They still enable themselves to do everything that they need to do with last second changes of direction, last second jumps towards the ball, last second moves in defense and in offense, but mostly in offense when you're solo queuing threes. A Sharp uncontested there, but Sypical's got the back post covered. Not a lot of boost to work with, but it looks like the orange team are afraid to challenge him because pretty much the same reason as Sypical didn't want to challenge Sharp in the offensive corner earlier on in the game. Why give a defender power on the ball when they can't generate any themselves? So another risky play developing for Sypical's team here, and he's had to make a couple of back post saves all by himself. Had the shot quality been better there from teammates, I think Sypical would have been in trouble. Luckily for Sypical, the shot was a weak one and not that accurate either. But with just over a minute to go, it's been a very even game. Both teams have had their chances. They both had plenty of pressure. A very tight angle redirect by Sypical. That was on target somehow. My goodness, he's a highlight reel in every single game he plays, whether it be ranked or tournaments. Now, orange advancing once again, but Sypical manages to bring the ball down. Never afraid to dribble out of defense, even though it is 3v3. That's something that Sypical's professional team, Space Station, really do love to do whenever they can. They love dribbling out of defense, forcing 50-50s, looking for outplays with flicks. That's not to say that they can't dominate aerial battles as well. Physical play coming in now for both teams. Final chance of regulation approaching, but it looks like it might go to Sypical's team here. Fortunate bounce for orange, but they weren't able to do too much with it, and I think teammates actually helped Sypical there. Sypical was extremely awkwardly positioned in net. Not that it was any fault of his, but he'll be glad to see that the touch came through on the back wall there from teammates taking the ball into the corner, because it did not look like a nice one to have to defend if it bounces straight down. So into overtime we go, and still completely tied. Sypical controls the ball in the back corner, and once again you see that Ajax doesn't want to just ram in there, force a challenge for no reason. Doesn't want to take himself out of the game, doesn't want to give Sypical a way to easily generate power on the ball. Sypical creeping forward here because he had backup. You know, if Sypical didn't have any backup, I would be surprised to see him completely committing to the corner in that position. Now some space for Ajax. It's in field and sneaks through 2 challenges. Abstract didn't have an easy play there, but Sypical really calmly sends the ball to safety. And he had to be calm there because he couldn't exactly see where all the opponents were, but I believe he's playing off a sound cue there because he knew there was no opponent nearby. Awareness and game sound probably coming in clutch as Ajax fakes Sypical. T-Bates is ran on in front of him. Dapper shuts him down and gets away on the left-hand side of the field. Now Ajax sends it high into the ceiling. Sypical has a good timer on that boost. And sometimes you don't even need to see exactly when a boost is picked up. If you know that there is nobody nearby, it's probably coming back. But now here comes Sypical. Wants a reset. Oh, that's creative. That's unbelievable. What a shot by Sypical. He didn't have any way to really catch up with this one and send it fast on target. So what does he do? He gets a reset on the ball and then just slightly taps it to the side of the goalkeeper. Unbelievable shot once again. And I'll reiterate, I have not cherry-picked these replays. These are just 3 replays that were recently played by Sypical. But what a monster he is. I think we have to look at this from T-Bates POV to really appreciate the skill that Sypical has just pulled off at the end of the game here. It's a fast shot would have given T-Bates a chance to save it. You'll notice that T-Bates was arriving back probably in time to give a touch on a fast shot from Sypical here. It's definitely close. Like right there, if Sypical just drills the shot on target, I think it's probably a goal, but you wanted to absolutely make sure. He didn't want to give T-Bates any chance of making a heroic save, and he just kind of lands on it. I don't know if he even needed the reset here. It was, you know, sort of a double touch on the way down, but if nothing else, using the underside of the car like this, it does slow the ball down and just sends it straight into the ground. So brilliant touch there by Sypical. Brilliant games. And it's really quite simple for him, isn't it? That's how Sypical does it. That's why he's rank 1. He takes his chances and he looks good while doing it. Well, thanks you guys for watching this one. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. And good luck to Sypical hanging on to that rank 1 towards the end of the season.